Hey people, get ready to crush everyday TOEFL iBT tests for all modules and make your dreams come true. I'm your motivator and I'll be guiding you through the test prep videos. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe or you'll be missing out on some serious preparation.
Is it better to try many activities or specialize in one? Explain. Begin speaking now.
I think it is better to try many activities because it is more fun. When you try many things, you can learn many things. For example, I try swimming and also music and also cooking. This is good because you know many things. If you only do one thing, maybe you get bored. Also, you can meet many different people when you try many activities. Some people say specializing is good, but I think variety is better. So, I believe trying many activities is the best choice for people. This is my opinion about this topic.
In my opinion, it is better to try many different activities rather than specializing in just one. My main reason is that exploring various activities helps you discover your true interests and talents. For instance, I tried playing tennis, painting, and learning a second language before I realized I was most passionate about languages. Trying these different things gave me a broader perspective on life. Additionally, having diverse experiences makes you a more well-rounded person, which is valuable in social situations and even in the workplace. Although some people argue that specializing leads to greater success, I believe that variety in experiences provides a stronger foundation for personal growth. Therefore, I strongly prefer exploring many activities, especially at a young age.
From my perspective, pursuing a variety of activities is considerably more beneficial than narrowing one's focus to a single pursuit, particularly during the formative years of personal development. To begin with, engaging in diverse activities cultivates a broader skill set and fosters adaptability, qualities that are increasingly valued in today's rapidly changing professional landscape. For example, research in cognitive development suggests that individuals who explore multiple domains tend to demonstrate greater creativity and stronger problem-solving ability. Furthermore, experimenting with different pursuits allows a person to make well-informed decisions about eventual specialization, rather than committing prematurely to a path that may not align with their evolving interests and strengths. While I acknowledge that deep expertise certainly has its merits, I firmly contend that a foundation of varied experiences ultimately produces more resilient, versatile, and fulfilled individuals.
The Office of Academic Affairs is pleased to announce that, beginning this semester, the University Library will extend its operating hours on weekends. Previously, the library closed at 6 p.m. on Saturdays and remained closed entirely on Sundays. Under the new schedule, the library will be open from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on both Saturdays and Sundays. This change was made in direct response to student feedback indicating that additional study time is needed outside of regular weekday hours. All library services, including computer workstations, research assistants, and full borrowing privileges, will remain available during these extended hours. Two students, a man and a woman, discussed the university's announcement about extended library hours on weekends. The male student strongly supports the extended library hours for two reasons. First, he explains that students are generally less busy on weekends and therefore have more uninterrupted time to study and complete assignments. Second, he points out that many students hold part-time jobs during the week, which prevents them from visiting the library on weekdays, so having Sunday access is especially valuable for those students. The student expresses an opinion about the announcement. State the opinion and explain the reasons given. Begin speaking now.
The man thinks the new library hours is a good idea. He says students can study more on weekends. He say this is helpful because students have more free time on weekends than on weekdays. Also, he talks about students who have jobs. These students work during the week so they cannot go to the library. But now they can go on Sunday. So the man liked the announcement because students get more time for study and also students with jobs can use the library now. I think this is a good change for the university.
The man in the conversation expresses a positive opinion about the university's decision to extend library hours on weekends. He provides two main reasons to support his view. First, he explains that students are generally less busy on weekends and therefore have more available time to focus on studying and completing assignments, making the extended hours especially convenient. Second, he points out that many students hold part-time jobs during the week, which significantly limits their ability to visit the library on weekdays. With the library now open on Sundays, these working students will have a much better opportunity to access academic resources and support. For these reasons, the man strongly agrees with the new library policy announced by the university.
The male student enthusiastically endorses the university's announcement regarding the extension of weekend library hours, and he articulates two well-reasoned arguments to justify his position. To begin with, he argues that students experience significantly less scheduling pressure on weekends compared to weekdays, which are typically dominated by classes, club activities, and other academic obligations. As a result, having the library accessible during weekend evenings gives students the flexibility to engage in focused, uninterrupted study sessions that are harder to achieve during the week. His second point addresses the considerable portion of the student population that maintains part-time employment on weekdays. For these individuals, accessing the library during the week is simply not feasible, so the addition of Sunday hours represents a meaningful and equitable improvement to campus academic resources. Taken together, the student views this policy change as a thoughtful and practical response to the genuine challenges of student life.
Functionalism is a foundational principle in architecture asserting that the design of a building should be dictated primarily by its intended purpose. Originating in the late 19th century and popularized by architect Louis Sullivan's maxim "form follows function," functionalism argues that aesthetic decisions must serve practical needs rather than purely decorative ones. A functionally designed structure eliminates unnecessary ornamentation and instead ensures that every element, from the layout of rooms to the selection of materials, directly supports how the space will be used. This philosophy profoundly influenced modernist architecture and continues to shape contemporary building design worldwide. A professor in an architecture course lectures about functionalism, using the design of the Bauhaus school building in Dessau, Germany, designed by Walter Gropius in 1926, as a concrete example. The professor explains that the Bauhaus building was designed with large glass curtain walls not for visual drama but to flood workshops with natural light, directly supporting the work done inside. She notes that the building's asymmetrical layout reflects the distinct functions of each wing, studios, dormitories, and workshops, rather than a desire for visual symmetry. This example illustrates how every architectural decision was subordinated to practical use, embodying the functionalist ideal. Using the example from the lecture, explain the concept of functionalism as described in the reading. Begin speaking now.
The reading says functionalism means a building's design should match its purpose. The professor talks about the Bauhaus building. It had big glass walls to let in light for the workers. The shape was also different for each part of the building. So the design helped people do their work. This shows functionalism.
According to the reading, functionalism is an architectural principle where a building's form is determined by its function, based on the idea that form follows function. The professor illustrates this with the Bauhaus building designed by Walter Gropius. She explains that its large glass walls were chosen to provide natural light to the workshops, not for decoration. Also, the building's asymmetrical shape reflects the different purposes of each wing. These design choices show that every element served a practical need, which directly demonstrates the functionalist principle described in the reading.
The reading defines functionalism as the architectural philosophy that a building's design should be governed entirely by its intended purpose, famously captured in Louis Sullivan's principle that form follows function, with ornamentation rejected unless it serves a practical role. The professor reinforces this concept through a highly specific example, the 1926 Bauhaus building in Dessau by Walter Gropius. She points out that the expansive glass curtain walls were an explicit functional decision, maximizing natural light to support the craft and design work conducted in the studios. Furthermore, the building's deliberately asymmetrical massing was not an aesthetic choice but a direct reflection of the different functions housed in each wing, such as dormitories, studios, and workshops. Together, these details illustrate how the Bauhaus building embodies the functionalist ideal described in the reading, every architectural element subordinated to practical use, with no separation between form and purpose.
A professor in a marine biology course delivers a lecture on bioluminescence, focusing on two main functions: predator-prey interactions and interspecies communication, with specific animal examples for each. The professor first explains that some deep-sea predators, like the anglerfish, use bioluminescence offensively. A light-producing lure dangles from the anglerfish's head to attract smaller fish in the darkness of the deep ocean, which the anglerfish then consumes. She then describes a second function, communication within species, using the example of certain dinoflagellates and, more vividly, the firefly squid of Japan, whose complex patterns of blue bioluminescent light along its body are used to signal potential mates during breeding season. The professor emphasizes that in both cases, bioluminescence is not a passive trait but an active, adaptive tool shaped by evolutionary pressures in light-deprived environments. Using points and examples from the lecture, explain bioluminescence and the functions it serves. Begin speaking now.
The professor talks about bioluminescence in the ocean. Some animals can make their own light. The anglerfish uses light to catch food. It has a light on its head and small fish come near it. Also, some squid use light to find a mate. So bioluminescence helps animals survive in the deep ocean where it is very dark.
In the lecture, the professor explains that bioluminescence is the ability of marine organisms to produce their own light, and she focuses on two main functions. First, it can be used for predation. The anglerfish, which lives in the deep sea where there is no sunlight, has a bioluminescent lure attached to its head. Smaller fish are attracted to the light and swim toward it, allowing the anglerfish to catch them easily. Second, bioluminescence is used for communication between members of the same species. The firefly squid produces blue light in specific patterns along its body to attract mates during breeding season. These two examples show that bioluminescence is an important survival adaptation.
The professor's lecture presents bioluminescence, the biological production of light by living organisms, as a highly adaptive trait that serves distinct and critical functions in marine environments, particularly in the deep sea where sunlight cannot penetrate. She illustrates this through two well-developed examples. The first concerns predation. The anglerfish possesses a specialized bioluminescent appendage, essentially a glowing lure, that protrudes from its head. In the pitch-black depths, smaller fish are instinctively drawn toward this light source, bringing them within striking range of the anglerfish. This demonstrates bioluminescence functioning as an active predatory strategy rather than a passive feature. The second function the professor highlights is intraspecies communication, exemplified by the firefly squid. This species generates elaborate, species-specific patterns of blue bioluminescent light across its body, which serve as signals to potential mates during the breeding season. The professor ties both examples together by emphasizing that bioluminescence is not incidental but an evolved, adaptive tool shaped by the extreme selective pressure of light-deprived environments that enables survival, reproduction, and ecological success.
Hey people, how was your test? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or you'll be missing out on some serious fun. See you tomorrow!